Hello and welcome back to This Week in Triathlon. We're your hosts, Kevin and Andres, and we have actually a pretty busy week coming off the weekend from Ironman Arizona. This week's show, we're going to cover that race, the amazing race from Victor del Corral. We're going to talk a little bit about Helmet Gate as it continues, as the world turns. And we're also going to go over TJ Tollakson's new crazy contraption, his new Dimond bike. And talk about some of the plans we have with This Week in Triathlon going into the off-season in North America, or as the Australians call it, their summer. So, Andres, how's it going?
Good, thanks, Kevin. It's a little chilly down here, a little wet, but it's winter weather in the Bay Area, so it's nothing out of the ordinary.
It's good wine and beer drinking weather.
Yeah, and we've certainly been doing quite a bit of that, so... it's getting to that time of the year where things slow down a little bit, and the days are quite a bit shorter. So, this could be the time where you really get derailed in terms of training and shape. But there's got to be a time during the year where that happens. So, but like you said, there's a lot to talk about today. We've got Ironman Arizona, which I don't know. Give me your thoughts. I found it to be a pretty interesting race. I don't know if you followed it, but I was certainly happy as a spectator.
It was actually a very interesting race, and I was trying to follow it the best I can. But before we jump into that, I just want to remind our viewers that it is the month of November, and Andres is sporting. He's kind of blended his mustache with his beard now. And is that because when your mustache gets that pervy, you have to actually register with a sex offender database, Andres?
Not quite. It is Berkeley after all, so there's quite a few things weirder than early 30s-year-old guy walking around with a mustache around here. But that's one of the benefits. But it is pervy for me to look in the mirror and see. It's a little bit light. I don't know if you can tell by looking in the camera. So I think that's what makes it bad. If it was really dark, I think it'd be one thing. But it's kind of like a light brownish color, which is not as bad as the blonde mustache. Which I think if you were able to grow a mustache, I think it'd probably be one of those super light mustaches. So. It's not quite that, but it is kind of weird, and thus it's why I've grown a little bit of hair around it.
All right, good. Well, enough about the stash, and on to Ironman Arizona. Like you said, it was an interesting race. The men's field, to be fair, was a little bit more stacked than the women's field. So I'm going to start with the men's side first. We had a notable debut of Matt Chabot. I was actually really looking forward to seeing how he did. Turned out to, some ITU athletes can really nail it, some not so much. And it looked like Richie Nichols and Matt Chabot didn't really have much left on the back end of the bike. They both swam very well, swam with the lead pack, and, seemed to the wheels kind of fell off the wagon. And if you look at the recipe of how Jordan Rapp has won this race in previous years, it's been almost exactly with how he raced this year, which is, come out of the water 2 to 4 minutes behind the lead pack, have an awesome bike. It seems like the group, I don't know if they sit up or if they just don't push it that hard on that course going up to the turnaround on the Beeline Highway. But Jordan Rapp always seems to bridge across by 56 miles, which is exactly what he did this year. And it seemed like everything was kind of going his way until Victor del Corral came off the bike and started to do exactly what he did at Ironman Florida just 2 weeks before, which was go out of the gate at sub 6 minute pace and hold it for almost the entire race. And he caught Jordan Rapp and went on to win his second Ironman in 2 weeks. And, Victor del Corral, he's definitely made a splash in the sport. I'm just curious, the courses that he's raced have been relatively easy. Arizona is slightly more difficult than Ironman Florida, but both are very fast courses. And I'm not sure, we did see him run a few minutes slower than he did at Florida. He still ran very quickly. And maybe it was he's coming off his second Ironman in 2 weeks. Maybe his legs didn't respond as well to a harder bike on a little bit more difficult course. So I'm interested to see how this guy kind of goes into, he's got the points to race Kona right now, assuming that he doesn't get disqualified from his performance at Ironman Florida with the helmet issue that's still ongoing. But I'm curious to see how this guy does on a more difficult course and more difficult conditions, because not a lot of guys can run that low 240 or high 230s marathon. And this guy clearly has that potential. So it'll be interesting to see how he kind of handles his 2014 racing.
But you talk about doing a harder course. I believe he won Ironman Lanzarote last year. I could be wrong, but I think he did either really well or he won. But nonetheless, he obviously is a good runner. I think he plays to his strengths, where he's not killing himself on the bike, and certainly he's not a terrible swimmer, but he's not a fantastic swimmer by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, he came in about 5 minutes behind the lead pack, about 2 minutes behind Jordan Rapp. So certainly knows what he can do really well and does it. But like you said, pretty impressive. He might have shut it down a little bit towards the end. In the marathon, he probably would have been able to run a little bit faster if he had to, if there was some sort of competition. But from what I hear, he's actually thinking about doing, or he's signed up to do Cozumel in a couple of weeks, which would be pretty crazy.
Yeah, that would be pretty crazy, and actually that'd be pretty stupid. The only reason I could think of him maybe doing Cozumel is if in fact in the coming weeks he gets actually disqualified from Ironman Florida from wearing the non-CPSC helmet. There was an official protest at the race filed, but there are some ongoing issues there with USAT. So if in the coming weeks they were to decide to pull his results, if he were to lose his KPR points, it might make sense to do that, but still, you only have so many Ironmans in your body. I think, and just taking that stress might be a little bit too much. Last thing you want to do going into an off season is going into an off season injured. You kind of want to use that time to kind of recharge your batteries, kind of tear it down and start back up. And if you're starting with just those little niggles that you can get from racing too much, that's not an optimal way to start your 2014 season. Because really, when you run that fast, people are going to be looking at him to do well at some big races next year. So he's made a reputation for himself in the last few weeks.
Yeah, and not being a great swimmer, and certainly we don't know how good of a biker he is, because I up to this point I don't think people have tried to really push the pace on the bike to just get rid of him. But obviously good enough to be a professional, but certainly his strength is running. So as you mentioned, it'll be interesting to see how this type of notoriety plays into future races and what people try to do when they know that he's within striking distance. But you mentioned.
So just a little bit about how this race evolved. There was a pretty quick swim, a pretty big group. It seemed like about 10 athletes were in that big group. Pedro Gomez was there. Jans Pedersen Bach was a few minutes back. He was one of the pre-race favorites, as was Trevor Wortel, also coming a few minutes back. But it seemed like Jordan Rapp was able to pull a lot of those guys back into the lead group. Some guys that were a little bit too far off the back coming out of the swim were guys like Matt Russell and Josef Major, who are good bike runners, but just they came out of the water too far back. And when you come out of the water, 8 minutes out of the lead, 10 minutes out of the lead, you're not. I don't care who you are, you're not going to bridge across that kind of a gap. And it's awfully lonely pushing the big watts by yourself all day. So guys like that were kind of out of it early, but when they hit the run, Victor Del Corral showed that you bike for show and you run for dough, and when you can run that fast, you can do a lot of damage to people.
Yeah, and speaking of Jordan Rapp bridging up to the front group, there was a lot of talk while the race was going on that these guys in the front were kind of waiting for him. But as it turns out, he was just biking really fast. I mean, he set a new course record. So it wasn't just a matter of the guys up front just saying, oh, we're just not going to go that hard and just let whoever's behind bridge up to the to us. I mean, he did set a new bike course record. So he was going pretty good. And,
from what I understand on race day, it was pretty fast conditions. It wasn't very windy. They laid down some new pavement on the Beeline Highway, so that would have sped things up a little bit. But still, anytime you ride under 420, it's going to be a tough effort. So hats off to Jordan Rapp for riding that quickly and with a road helmet, no less.
A very aerodynamic road helmet. Yeah, I mean it's still a road helmet, but very aerodynamic.
Yeah, I think Jordan Rapp, sponsored by Specialized, would probably prefer to be riding the McLaren helmet, but he knows that is non-CPSC certified. And speaking of that certification, after the race, there was actually a little bit of hubbub. You and I were kind of going back on Facebook that or Facebook, on slow Twitch and by text message that Victor Del Corral, at first it was suspected that he actually used the same helmet again that he used at Florida, because he bought a Cask Bambino helmet and had it wrapped with the exact same paint scheme as his Ikoi helmet that he used that's not legal. So Jordan Rapp, he must have gone by him so fast, it was probably just a blur. He probably looked over, saw that helmet, it looked about the same. So when he finished and got beat by Victor, he didn't dink around. He went straight to a referee and filed an official protest just to make sure he got it in within that 60-minute window. And unfortunately for Jordan, he kind of came away with a little bit of egg on his face, because he was wrong. Victor Del Corral said, "Hey, look, I just had a Bambino helmet wrapped," and Jordan Rapp probably felt kind of silly. Maybe not.
I disagree with that, because the weirdest thing about this was that there was even an issue brought up. It's not a secret, especially after what happened 2 or 3 weeks ago in Ironman Florida, that athletes are told to bring CPSC helmets or certified helmets, and that those are most likely going to be checked at the athlete meeting. So when you have the first race since Ironman Florida, won't you just check them before the race and just say, okay, everybody racing has a CPSC certified helmet? I mean, it shouldn't have even gotten to that point. And the fact that they had to go find Victor Del Corral in his hotel or wherever he was, you could have nipped this in the bud right off the gate and just said, okay, everybody's helmet has been inspected and everybody's got a CPSC certified helmet. So I think the egg is on, again, Ironman and its referees.
Yeah, maybe you're right. And to be fair to Jordan Rapp, I think he was just trying to avoid the fiasco that happened a few weeks ago at Florida, where the protests came too late. You have only 60 minutes after the end of a race to file any kind of protest formally. So I think he was just avoiding that. Anyways, we don't want to spend any more time than we need to on helmets. Going back to the women's race, it wasn't the deepest field, but we did have some big names showing up. We had Michelle Vesterby, who had a great race in Kona. Meredith Kessler, who was pushing the pace, leading at Kona a lot of times, and she's a great athlete, one of the best in the sport of triathlon. And also, not to discount Dr. Amanda Stevens, who was lined up for this race, who was one of the pre-race favorites as well. I suspected that we were going to see Doc Stevens and Meredith Kessler come out of the water together, but Meredith Kessler just dropped the hammer on the swim. Not sure what happened. Maybe Amanda Stevens lost her feet, or maybe had some navigation issues with looking into the sun there in Tempe Town Lake. But Meredith came out in just over 50 minutes, caught a lot of the male pros right away. She would have caught me right away if I had been in that race. But I don't know if she was soft pedaling, but she got caught pretty early on the bike as well. And she still had a great race, broke 9 hours. But the performance of the day, hats off to Julia Geyer there. With a great run. She had the fastest run that I believe that I saw in the women's field. Ran just over 3 hours, which the Arizona course is flat. In theory, it's just the Arizona course is a lot of concrete, and you're going to beat up your legs a lot versus running on some crushed limestone or trails or anything like that. So it's just very unforgiving. It's always tough, I think, for me, especially coming off that race, just because it really beats up your feet. Dr. Amanda Stevens, I think she had some GI issues, was forced to drop out after using the porta potties. I know how that goes. It's not fun, but would have loved to see her up on the podium and get some points for Kona next year, but it wasn't going to happen. So Michelle Vesterby, she rounded off the podium there in third with a pretty good race there. Not probably up to the par with how she did at Kona, but a little bit too much time has passed there to try to capture that fitness she had at Kona. So a good race at Ironman Arizona. We'll be back covering that race next year. Maybe I'll be in that race next year. We'll see.
Yeah, and actually, we talk about slower swim times, and Sarah Pampiano actually made up quite a bit of time from the swim to actually finishing in fourth place So I believe, yeah, out of the top 5, she was the only one to have a over 1 hour swim. So it does matter, but at the end of the day, you can salvage it somewhat with a strong bike, which she had, and a pretty decent run. But I think the race was quite exciting on the women's side, because you had Meredith Kessler, who was up front for a majority of it, I think into mile 20 or something like that, and Julia Geyer was just running her brains out, and you knew it was going to happen, you just didn't know when it was going to happen, and they kept describing Meredith Kessler just, as it got closer and closer, she kept on looking back, and we certainly know what that looks like, because I believe in Kona, it was her that got passed by Kate Snow, going into the finishing chute to finish as the top American. So
I think that's actually our most popular video on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/This Week in Triathlon. Just with Kate Snow getting on Meredith, and she's looking back, and the crowds are going crazy. It was actually pretty hilarious.
Yeah, so I think it was similar to that, except it didn't happen quite so close to the finish. But you can probably, I don't know, maybe you can speak about how that feels, maybe not, but it's just got to be a horrible feeling when you just want to push your body and there's just nothing left, and I think that's probably what she was going through, and she knew that she was going to get caught at some point, she just didn't know when. So yeah, I mean, she was able to hold off second place, which is still a great show, and she's never been able to win Ironman Arizona in her 10 years. Well, she's not done it every year as a professional, but she's never been able to do it. She's had some really good finishes. So maybe the 11th time will be the charm.
Yeah, just my thoughts on looking back. You don't look back. Period. Coming from a track racing background, there's this famous race. You can actually look it up on YouTube with John Landy and Roger Bannister, the first guys that broke 4 minutes in the mile. Roger did it first. John Landy did it second. Ran a little bit faster, and they had this big matchup race. And it came down to the last lap where John Landy, the Australian, is leading the race, and he looks back, but he looks back over the wrong shoulder, and Roger Bannister passes him on the other side, and that's always used as kind of a famous case of why you don't look back. But I think the reason you don't look back is that you can't control anything that happens behind you. You can only control what happens in front of you. So if you feel like you're under pressure, just focus on running faster, focus on whatever you can. Don't focus on what's behind you. I think the only time you look back is if you're trying to strategize a final kick or something like that in a bike race, or maybe a final sprint of a race, trying to figure out exactly where you are in a certain sprinting situation. But looking back, it's going to do nothing but hurt you.
Agreed. So anyway, should we move on to the unveiling of TJ Tollakson's new Dimond bike?
Yeah, this was actually awesome. You and I both met TJ at the Kona Expo this year, and Dimond, this guy is a pretty innovative guy. Has a very unique position on the bike. Has a bike that he designed himself there, I believe, in Iowa where he lives. TJ is a pretty good athlete. He's won some races. He's a really good swim biker. He's a little bit bigger guy, and he's figured out a way to get himself very aero. He spent a lot of time in the wind tunnel. And he started this company. He's actually started a couple companies in the space. He started Rustro Sports. This is his first version of his Dimond bike that Andres is throwing up there. And you can actually see how high his arm position. He kind of rides in that frame mantis position that worked very well for Levi Lightprimer and for Floyd Landis. This position is actually banned in UCI legal races. But apparently this can be a very, very, very aerodynamic position, and also very comfortable to ride if it works for you. And clearly it works for TJ there, but kind of focusing on the bike there, this looks almost exactly like the Zip 2001 and Zip 3001 bikes that we saw. And this is his newest bad boy that was unveiled last week. Wasn't the most graceful rollout of a new product. This wasn't like a Apple type rollout at CES or anything like this. This was just kind of, they kind of announced it was coming, and then it was there. And he's actually cleaned up a lot of the lines. If you look at the cord length between the head tube there and kind of where it flares back, you won't see any bike on the market right now, even the new Felt IA that has that kind of a cord length. So we know that the longer an airfoil is, it tends to be a little bit quicker. not a lot of surface area for that. What the wind doesn't see, the wind can't slow down. So that's a pretty slick-looking bike, Andres. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I like it a lot, and going from we put the original version followed by the new version, and they've obviously tweaked it quite a bit, and it still remains a beam bike as they call them, but I like it a lot, and I like it because it's not trying to do something that it's not trying to comply with UCI regulations. It's just trying to make a really fast bike. And like you said, TJ he's a creative guy. He's an engineer. He's somebody who has spent a lot of time thinking about these sort of things. So unfortunately, it's a little bit cost prohibitive for a lot of people. But I think you're going to see it. You're going to see some of it a lot more than you saw the original version. And who knows? Maybe it'll spark a movement. Aside from just putting a really deep down tube on a regular bike, a la Shiv or Felt IA, bringing some beam bikes back.
Yeah, I'm very curious to know how a bike like this handles. You can do some amazing things with carbon fiber. I don't think you could pull off a bike like this with traditional steel tubing or aluminum. It's just not stiff enough to be able to be resilient. You can do amazing things.
Actually, the Zip bikes were actually made out of aluminum, except for the beam, I think. So they have been done with aluminum before, and aluminum's been known to be quite stiff. So I just think you can shape carbon in so many more different ways that it just makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. With the beam, you can make it so stiff and stiff where it needs to be, compliant where it needs to be. So I'm curious to know how this feels, flying down in descent in aero position at 55 miles an hour. I wonder if it's a little nervous, but actually they tested this bike in the wind tunnel there down at Faster in Scottsdale, their new wind tunnel and retail shop there in Scottsdale, and they did some testing actually on not just longitudinal but also lateral testing, where they actually would turn the bike sideways and actually feel kind of like what the crosswinds would feel like. And like I mentioned, what the wind doesn't see, the wind can't really affect. So if you look at a race like Kona, I bet a bike like this would actually be a joy to ride in some of those crosswinds versus some of the other bikes with tubes everywhere. So I would love to take a bike like this out. Going back to the white paper, they did publish a white paper, if you can call it that, from some of their data. They tested this bike. The new Dimond bike, they tested against not the speed concept, I'm sorry, the Specialized Shiv Tri, and also the Cervelo P56.
P53.
The 2.5. Okay, but two of the fastest bikes out there, it didn't seem like they tried to fudge the numbers. It looked like they just took. I've seen what the graphs they pull up there in the wind tunnel. It looks like they just copied and pasted the data. I don't think they really massaged any data or really tried to focus this. They tried to have pretty comparable setups. It wasn't exact, but it was pretty close. And looking at the graphs, it looked like it did great, especially on those lateral tests where they're measuring the aerodynamics of it. But what was really interesting to me, Andres, is they were talking about the margin of error in the wind tunnel, because these wind tunnels have to be extremely precise, and you want to see a lot of repeatability. So if you put Andreas in the wind tunnel on his Canyon Speed Max, you'd want to see that test the same every time. And what was interesting to me is that when they tested these bikes, they weren't the same every time. And I think that I've heard some people talking in the industry about this wind tunnel. It sounds like they kind of tried to squeeze this wind tunnel design into a space that didn't quite fit, and they actually sacrificed some of the margin of error there. So they were talking about, I think they got down to 25 grams of drag, and apparently that's not repeatable in their wind tunnel, where 25 grams, that's about an ounce or so, which might not sound like a lot, but when you're trying to get nitpicky and talking about things that are less than a watt in effect, you want to be able to have that kind of precision. So I don't think this wind tunnel has that kind of precision to actually be able to tell which helmets are faster or which wheels are faster. I think this tunnel probably does a lot of things for figuring out your position and things like that, but I don't think it's precise. It's certainly not as accurate as Specialized new wind tunnel, their wind tunnel in California. and it is much, much less expensive than other wind tunnels, so maybe people can go there. But any thoughts there, Andreas, on what you saw in that white paper?
Yeah, so essentially, I mean, what I got out of it is that it tests very well. It's not going to be if it's better than these new super bikes. It's not going to be much better, but it's certainly not worse. So I think that's what I got out of it. I also I also think that when you talk about the wind tunnel itself, maybe we're just trying to give Faster a little bit too much credit for what that wind tunnel is supposed to be for. I know that manufacturers use it because it's not quite as expensive as maybe going to the A2 wind tunnel or going to the San Diego low-speed wind tunnel or even the University of Washington wind tunnel in terms of how much they have to pay per hour to be there, because it's a very extensive process. And you've been to the wind tunnel to test your position, and I don't know how much time you spent there, but if you're trying out different prototypes and you're trying out different setups, I mean, this could take on days, and it does get very expensive. So I think at the end of the day, it serves its purpose. It's more of kind of like what I described to you via text or email the other day. It might just be the Stages power meter of wind tunnels. It's not going to be the most accurate, but it's going to allow for somebody to have wind tunnel numbers that they can publish instead of just pulling them out of their rear end. And for a consumer, for somebody like you and I mean, it just it makes complete sense to perhaps go to a place like that than go to to an A2. Whereas for a professional triathlete or a professional cyclist, they're going to want to go to the actual thing.
Absolutely, no, that's a great analogy there. Kind of the Stages power meter, versus the SRM standard, which might be the specialized tunnel or San Diego low speed tunnel, where their margin of error is in fractions of a gram.
Yeah, and kudos to TJ and Dimond for at least doing it, because you can sit there and talk about this bike is faster, blah blah blah, this, that, and the other, but they've actually got numbers. Whether they're going to be the most accurate numbers or not, who knows, but they've actually gone through the process and at least tested it at some level.
Right. So we saw the new Falcon bike coming out, and it looks similar to that. So the Beam bikes, maybe they're back. Maybe this time to stay. But kind of switching gears, we're kind of coming into the off season, Andreas, and you and I were talking just before the show of how we're going to kind of frame the next few weeks. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think the off season is a great opportunity for trying new things or maybe tweaking some things that you thought about tweaking during the racing season, whether it's position, maybe new equipment, even just making your own gel or something like that, something related to nutrition. But I think because you have the time and you're not necessarily racing, you can try and tweak these sort of things. So we'll touch on that over the next few weeks as as the racing season slows down a bit. But we'll come up with a few things, and yeah, I mean, so I think the other thing to do is if people have any suggestions or questions, they should definitely get in touch via our Facebook page.
Right. So I think we talked about bike fit, strength training, and running style and shoe selection. So those will be some of the things we'll be talking about in the coming weeks. But always feel free to join the conversation on our Facebook page, This Week in Triathlon. And I think one of the subjects we'll clearly want to touch on is cigar appreciation, and maybe a little maybe how to appreciate cognac. So I'll let Andreas touch on that. And
I'm kind of a Scotch guy. You seem like you would be more of a cognac guy than I am. I mean, you're the wine guy between the two of us. But I don't know. You just kind of look like a cognac aficionado.
So you're telling me I look like a jerk, huh?
No, cognac's very sophisticated, if you ask me.
Okay, well, I'm not sure how to interpret that jab. But anyways, I want to thank our viewers for tuning in to This Week in Triathlon. We have some stuff coming up here. Ironman Cosmo, we're going to see the return of Mickey Weiss, which should be interesting, coming off a 2-year ban for doping. Looking forward to seeing how he does and to see how Paulo Sousa reacts on Twitter. But I want to thank our viewers for tuning in, and you can always join the conversation on our Twitter, Tri News Desk, or Facebook This Week in Triathlon. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Take care, everybody.